Hello, guys, and welcome to the first episode review of Survivor UK. Now, Survivor is a big US reality TV show, and it made the jump to the UK in the early 2000s. Didn't do particularly well, but it's back now in 2023. New host, new format, very similar to the US. And I think it is actually very entertaining. A lot of people have been complaining that it's not quite the same as the American one, or it's not quite the same as the British one. I think it's a nice balance currently, but obviously we'll see how the season progresses. We've only seen one episode so far. The second one is out on BBC iPlayer. I'm going to watch it after I finish this video because I don't want my thoughts and my feelings on people to be sort of changed by what I see in the second episode. So they were split into two tribes straight away, and it was actually quite an interesting mix of people on each team. We didn't get to see a great deal from everyone in this episode because obviously they can only focus on so many people at a time because there's 18 of them. But I felt like I got to know a decent chunk of them and got to see how they're coping, how they're surviving, how they are working as a whole. Now, guys, if you are liking what you're seeing and you're enjoying this episode review of Survivor UK, then make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff that I know you guys do so well. It's been really supportive on the Big Brother videos, so I just want the same kind of support on these videos as well. Thank you guys very, very much, and let's get back on with the episode. So, Joel introduced the castaways to the show and sort of the format and how it's going to work, and then plunged them straight into their first challenge, which was to throw as many of the supplies overboard into these like submerged wooden crate things that they had to then swim to shore, and then they had to light a fire and burn through a rope to drop a crate. And if they did all of that first, then they got all of the supplies from both teams and both of the crates, which was a huge advantage straight off the bat. Essentially, one team left with supplies that could last them a long time, and the other team walked away with nothing. Like, genuinely, they walked away with nothing. And it was quite crazy to watch, actually. I feel like Survivor challenges are very sort of gritty and everyone's really determined to do very well. It's not like a Big Brother challenge where the stakes aren't really that high. No, the stakes are high. If you don't win this challenge, you're probably going hungry for a couple of days, or you might not have fire for a couple of days. And it's really interesting to see those stakes play out live on television. Not live, but like on television in this kind of format. So, the two tribes are currently Calaton and Lenena, and I thought it was really, really interesting how Calaton made it to the shore first, but they really struggled to build that fire and make sure that it went high enough to burn the rope and drop the crate. The other team, Lenena, were a little bit behind, but they still made it to shore, but they built their fire better, so it burnt the rope quicker. And there was a brilliant moment where one of the guys called Pegleg actually snapped a log over his sort of prosthetic leg. Very, very entertaining. Joel pointed it out, and it did make me chuckle because I was like, do you know what? This guy is actually kind of badass, and I wouldn't be surprised if he makes it quite far in this competition because he seems like he's got very, very good survival skills. Eventually, Lenena was the winner of the challenge, and I gotta say, I was kind of rooting for them because they were the second team to make it to the beach. They were behind Calaton, and they still managed to win. And so I'm always rooting for the underdog. And I feel like now that Lenena have won that first one, I might be rooting for Calaton a little bit more. And it's difficult because I flip-flop between every time. If there's one team that's winning all the challenges, then I tend to root for the underdogs. But then in true Survivor fashion, alliances form, everything could change. So, genuinely, these tribes might be here for now, but in a couple of weeks, they might be broken up. You never know. It's probably time to talk about the individual tribes and what we learnt about some of the characters in there and what we learnt about the tribes as a whole. So we'll start off with Lenena. So they've just come back from winning the first challenge. They've got bananas, they've got supplies, they've got a lighter to make sure they light a fire. We learnt that Lee was a boxer through a VT. We didn't get many VTs from people in this episode. I think I counted 3 or 4, maybe 5, I don't know. But out of 18, I feel like we didn't get to know much about the cast's life, and I wonder whether we'll learn more in the coming episodes. And I don't know, it feels weird because some people got VTs, some people did not get VTs, and it makes me think, well, are the people who are getting VTs the ones that are going to stay around longer, or were they just doing it for the sake of doing it? I don't know, it feels a little bit weird currently. Christopher on the Lenena team tribe seems a bit too happy, and I have a feeling that this sort of kumbaya, let's all be happy, positive attitude isn't going to last very long, and we're going to see him break. Either that or he's going to get voted off, because he was starting to bug me a little bit in this episode, just from like oh yeah, we're a team, let's do this, woo. It was just a little bit too much. Like, you've just met these people, chill, let's get the fire going before you start doing any of that. Next up was about Pegleg. So Pegleg's the guy with the prosthetic leg, and I think he's going to be a very, very interesting character. I think he's going to have incredible moments, but I feel like his sort of leadership qualities are going to rub people up the wrong way. It's going to go one of two ways. He's either going to be the leader and he's going to lead them to victory, or he's going to want to be the leader and people are going to clash with him because they also want to be the leader, or they don't necessarily want to be told what to do. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking on a leadership role. However, you can't be a dictatorship. Yes, you can't be a dictator. And I think currently we're seeing Pegleg as a leader, and he's actively starting fires, cooking, doing all this stuff. So I think he's a very valuable asset to the team currently, but I also question whether the team's going to turn on him at some point. The final thing I wanted to talk about was Sabrina, and she said something like 5-star beaching it all the way, and I just thought, do you know what, you're going to get kicked off soon. You're not making it very far if you keep up this kind of, oh yeah, we're having a fabulous time attitude, because that's going to rub people up the wrong way, especially if they're not having a good time. So, I don't know, I'm just worried that she might be a little bit too positive in the same way that Christopher is, and I think she might rub people up the wrong way. Calaton was really struggling to start a fire, and when they came to the immunity challenge, they told us that they hadn't eaten in like a couple of days, and they also hadn't been able to start a fire, which was a little bit crazy, I won't lie. We also got to learn a little bit about Lawrence. I'm pretty sure Lawrence is the Austrian, like, English person, I think. And he's also, he looks like a posh boy, and because he has horses, he loves horses, does horse riding, and I think he's going to be an interesting character. Don't know whether he's going to go very far. I don't really know much about these people currently. I can see some people are very strong, some people are very savvy, so it's interesting to see what kind of route this show takes. Will a lot of the challenges be strength based, or will some of them be sort of to do with the mind? Because I think Lawrence might be quite good with the more puzzle challenges as opposed to the sort of strength challenges. I don't know, I could be completely wrong. There was a lot of talk around Shy and sort of how he is very much a person who gives instructions but doesn't necessarily do anything himself, which, I gotta be honest, in Survivor is a death sentence. If people notice that you're not pulling your weight, you're not doing the chores, you're not doing this, you're not helping out with the team, but you're standing around and you're telling other people what to do, that's going to rub people up the wrong way. And we've seen it countless times. I've only seen up to season 5 of Survivor US, so like I can't talk about the other 40 odd seasons. However, people who don't contribute, don't help out, are usually the ones that get voted off. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with him in the future. Jess was giving me like hippie vibes in her confessional. And then we saw her VT and she gave me the complete opposite of hippie vibes. So I don't really know how I stand with Jess. Is she putting on a kind of act at the moment where she's like, oh yeah, everything is fine? I don't know. Could go either way. I think she's nice. Do I think she'll make it to the end? Probably not. I would say that I don't think she'll make it to the merger. Just because I think she's going to clash with people, especially with the sort of the positivity as well. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. So it's time to talk about the immunity challenge. And I got to say, the immunity challenge was actually a very, very entertaining watch. A lot of the time in the older seasons, the immunity challenges are over quite quickly. And so it's not necessarily as engaging to watch. But this one was like, you genuinely couldn't call it. You didn't know which way it was going to go because it was such a difficult challenge, I thought. Each of the tribes were asked to line up and hold on to like this rope pulley thing that held a barrel up in the air. If they let go of the barrel, it would come crashing down, and the first person to let go, their team would lose. So like, it's not even last man standing, it's first person to let go loses, which is quite harsh, I thought. I thought that was really, really tough. So they're all standing there, they're like planting their feet, they're sorting themselves out. Leilani on Calaton team, she was the one that decided to go first, but obviously there was a rule that meant you could leave, but you had to pass your handle over to somebody else. So she passed it to Nathan, and Nathan was holding 2. He was showing off at the start, so like I think he kind of deserved the challenge, if I'm being honest. But he ended up struggling a little bit, and that's when Shai was jumping in and out and helping. And it was nice to see a sort of community team atmosphere from Calaton because they were really helping out each other. Lanena, well, I want to say it was Lanena. It was really just Lee. Lee was the one that was kind of egging things on, making digs, making comments, saying that they should just give up because they haven't had many calories recently. They're starving. They should just give up. And it did get to a point where I was just like, oh, shut up, just let them like participate because it's not helping anything. I think at one point Matthew had to go, and then he passed his on to Richard, and then on the other side Sabrina gave her one to, I can't remember who she gave it to, but she gave it to somebody else, and it ended up with 7 people left on Calaton with 9 barrels and 8 people left on Lanena with 9 barrels as well. So it was a very, very close competition until Richard just thought, fuck it and let go, and essentially sent his team to Tribal Council that evening. From the looks of it, it was done 100% on purpose, and he just let go and gave up. It wasn't like he slipped or it just fell out of his grasp. No, the look on his face was, oh fuck, and just let go. In that moment, I was like, oh, I don't know, you could be going home because of that. Because that's not helpful. That's ruined your team's chances of, like, surviving the night, essentially. And also, I thought, if you're struggling, ask somebody next to you to take one just for a second so you can get your muscles back. That's what Nathan and Shai were doing over the other end. But it just felt like he gave up, and that was just a little bit disappointing to see, if I'm being honest. So Lanena obviously won the immunity challenge, so we didn't really see, in fact we didn't see anything from them for the rest of the episode. So the focus was mainly on Calaton, and I think this is where Survivor really thrives, because in the opening episode we don't get to learn a lot about one of the tribes, but we get to learn a lot about the workings of the tribe that goes to tribal council. So there were loads of different conversations about who should go up, who's in the firing line, who's on the chopping block. Tanook and Richard were having a little backwards and forwards. It seemed like Tanook wanted Shy to go home, but she also brought up a good point about how without Shy in that challenge, they would have lost a lot earlier, and he was actually one of the sole reasons why they kept going for as long as they did. I think they were holding onto those barrels for about 45 minutes, which I don't know, I would have given up well before then. But she did bring up a very, very good point that he was instrumental in them lasting as long as they did. Obviously, Richard isn't going to want to put himself up, and that kind of put Tanook in a difficult position, because she was like, do I vote for the person who is annoying in camp but not good at the challenges, or no, annoying in camp but good at the challenges, or the person who lost us this challenge? And I think that's what she was struggling with. She was struggling with, what if I vote for Richard and he doesn't go home, then he's going to be coming after me. And I think that's a whole big part of Survivor. I gotta say, when she was saying that, I was thinking, well, he doesn't know that you would have voted for him. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know, it was a little bit confusing, that section. Richard was saying that he wanted Leilani to go up because she gave up earliest out of everybody in the challenge, and whilst I think that is fair, she wasn't the one that lost them the challenge. If she had ducked out, given it to Nathan, and then Nathan had been the one to let go, fair enough, because that was Leilani's fault. However, Matthew leaving was the one that fucked the whole group. And I think it was Matthew. I don't remember seeing Matthew beyond the competition, so I don't know. It's a bit confusing at the moment. But then we were getting to Nathan, and Nathan was bringing up that obviously Leilani is a target. However, the person he wants to go for is Richard, because Richard is the one that lost them the challenge. And I think this whole conversation was just very interesting, because you got to see where people's heads were at before the challenge, before the tribal council started. So we go into tribal council, and Joel does his usual sort of like, oh, do you think you caused this? He does the sort of Jeff thing, but I think the seasons that I watch of Jeff is very cold. Joel is a little bit warmer, and it doesn't have that same harsh attack to it. I haven't decided whether that's a good or a bad thing currently. I do like Joel, so I think I like him as the host, but again, I need to see more from him this season before I can make a final verdict. So obviously Leilani was asked whether she thinks she caused the downfall of the team, and she did take responsibility. She said, I know I should have lasted longer, but I just could not get myself in a position where it was comfortable, and so I thought, rather than letting go, I'll pass it over to Nathan so that we can continue with this challenge. When Richard was asked if he thought that he was in sort of jeopardy, he just turned around and went, I think we're all in jeopardy. And I think that kind of sealed the deal. If he'd have taken ownership and he'd have gone, yeah, but I think that this was a fluke, I don't think that this was necessarily indicative of what I can bring to this competition, what I can bring to this tribe, I think he could have done better. But I think the problem was he tried to deflect, and people don't like deflectors. So the voting happened, and it was a 7-1 vote. So Leilani received a vote from Rich, Jess voted for Shy, and then the other 7 members of the tribe voted for Richard. And Richard was the first eliminated contestant on this season of Survivor UK. Do I think it was the right decision? Absolutely. I don't think that they would have lost if he'd have just kept holding on. I think Lenena were close to breaking, and I think that they kept it up for so long, Calaton, and the only reason they lost was because Richard kind of just gave in. And the game's the game, you got to play it. And unfortunately, Calaton has lost their first member. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little recap episode. I'm about to watch episode 2. So make sure to look out for that review video tomorrow. And I will see you guys for the next Survivor episode. Bye now. Keep on ranting.